Imagine waking up every single day and you remember everything. Every enemy, every slight, every human who threw something at you, every crow who betrayed you, every location where you once found food 3 winters ago. Imagine having the intelligence to understand that you are hated, feared, and considered a bad omen, and being completely unable to do anything about it. That is the life of a crow. And today, we're going to explore why, despite being one of the most remarkable animals on planet Earth, being born as a crow might just be one of the universe's cruelest jokes. Let's start with what makes crows special, because understanding their intelligence is critical to understanding why their life is so hard. Crows are members of the corvid family, alongside ravens, jays, and magpies, and they possess something genuinely extraordinary: a brain-to-body ratio comparable to that of great apes. Some researchers have argued that in terms of relative cognitive ability, crows sit closer to chimpanzees than they do to most other birds. They use tools, not just picking up sticks and poking at things, they craft tools. Crows in New Caledonia have been documented bending wire into hooks to retrieve food from tubes. They've never been taught this, they figured it out on their own. They solve multi-step puzzles, they understand cause and effect, they plan for the future, a cognitive ability once thought to be uniquely human. They count, they understand the concept of zero, which many human civilizations took thousands of years to figure out. Here's where the tragedy begins. All of that intelligence, it comes with a cost, a severe one. Because intelligence requires a big, complex brain. A big brain requires enormous caloric fuel to maintain. This means that crows are in a constant, exhausting battle to find enough food just to keep their own minds running. Every single day, a crow wakes up and must dedicate a huge portion of its waking hours to foraging, not because it's lazy or poorly designed, but because the organ it relies on to survive demands constant feeding. It's like being the owner of a Ferrari and spending every day desperately hunting for enough gas to keep it running. Intelligence is expensive, and crows pay the price every morning they open their eyes. Now let's talk about memory, because this is where things get genuinely dark. Crows have exceptional episodic-like memory. They can remember specific events, specific places, and most disturbingly, specific faces. Research from the University of Washington, now famous in the animal cognition world, demonstrated that crows not only recognize individual human faces, but hold grudges against them. Researchers who trapped and banded crows while wearing a specific mask were later dive-bombed and mobbed by those same crows, and by their offspring, who had never interacted with the masked researchers, but had learned the threat from their parents. That grudge persisted for over a decade in some cases. Think about what this means for a crow living in a human-dominated environment. Every unpleasant interaction gets cataloged permanently. The kid who threw rocks at them in 2011, the neighbor who shooed them off a fence, the delivery driver who drove too close to the nest, all of it stored, all of it remembered. Now here's the twist. Crows also share this information socially. They have alarm calls specific to individual threats. They warn each other. They teach the next generation who to fear. It sounds like a superpower, and in survival terms, it is. But think about the subjective experience of living with that kind of memory. You cannot forget. You cannot let go. Every perceived threat is forever encoded in a brain that never stops processing. For a creature with emotional complexity, which crows absolutely have, more on that in a moment, this is not just memory, this is the neurological architecture of chronic vigilance. Crows essentially live with something that functions like hypervigilance, always watching, always cataloging, always preparing for the enemy they remember from years ago. No wonder they look suspicious all the time. They are.
Here's the part that surprised me the most when I went deep into the research. Crows have rich, emotional lives. And that is not an exaggeration or anthropomorphism. This is documented, peer-reviewed science. Crows experience something remarkably close to grief. When a crow dies, other crows gather around the body. This behavior, called a crow funeral, has been studied extensively. They don't just look, they vocalize, they call out, and other crows from surrounding areas arrive. Scientists believe this serves a dual function: understanding what killed their companion and mourning. Yes, mourning. Crows also form monogamous pair bonds that last for life. When a mate dies, the surviving crow's behavior changes markedly: reduced foraging, altered social patterns, prolonged time near the site of loss. Crow families are tight-knit. Young crows from previous years often stay to help their parents raise the next clutch of eggs. They are genuinely cooperative, genuinely attached, and genuinely capable of loss. And here is where nature's cruelty reaches a peak, because crows also live in a world saturated with predators, poison, human infrastructure, power lines, traffic, and territorial violence. Their emotional attachments are real, and they lose the things they're attached to constantly and violently. Imagine being cognitively sophisticated enough to grieve. Imagine being emotionally wired to bond deeply. And then imagine living in an environment where every single day brings the very real chance of sudden, brutal loss. That is the crow's emotional reality.
Let's talk about enemies, because crows have a lot of them. From above, they are hunted by hawks and eagles, apex aerial predators with talons that can crush bone. At night, owls, silent, powerful, and nearly invisible, pick off roosting crows with brutal efficiency. Owls are actually among the leading causes of crow mortality, a fact crows are entirely aware of. Their hatred of owls is so deeply embedded that it has become instinctual. A crow will mob an owl on sight, risking injury to drive away the nocturnal predator before nightfall. But it's not just natural predators. Humans have been killing crows, deliberately, for centuries. We've poisoned them, shot them, destroyed their nests, and classified them as pests. In many parts of the world, this continues today. Some regions still hold organized crow culls annually. And then there are other crows. Crows' social dynamics are complex and sometimes brutal. Territory disputes between crow families can escalate into prolonged aerial combat. Crows will destroy the nests of rival pairs. They will kill the young of competitors. Intra-species conflict is a genuine and constant source of stress, injury, and death. So, to summarize the crow's threat landscape: hawks, eagles, owls, humans, other crows, cars, power lines, disease, poison bait, domestic cats and dogs, cold winters with insufficient food stores. The crow wakes up every morning with a brain sophisticated enough to understand all of this and faces it alone. Or rather, with a small family unit that it loves deeply and could lose at any moment. If you thought crow family life was complicated, wait until we talk about crow society at scale. Many crow species form massive communal roosts in winter, sometimes tens of thousands of birds gathering in a single location. These aren't random gatherings, they are intensely social, hierarchical events. Crow roosts have pecking orders, literally. Dominant individuals get better roosting positions, which means better protection from the wind, better proximity to food sources, and a lower statistical chance of getting taken by an owl in the night. Lower-ranking crows get the exposed outer branches, the cold, the vulnerability. And within these massive social groups, crows are paying attention to everything. Who is dominant? Who is forming alliances? Who is new? Who is weakened? Who has good food caches that might be worth following? Yes, crows watch each other cache food and then steal it.
And they know this, which means when a crow is hiding food, it will often perform fake caches, elaborate decoy burials to mislead any crow that might be watching. Deception, counterintelligence, social maneuvering, all happening inside that expensive, fuel-hungry brain, inside an animal that has to simultaneously watch the sky for hawks and the ground for humans. The cognitive load of being a crow is genuinely staggering.
And now, the cruelest part. Crows pass the mirror test. If you're not familiar, the mirror test is one of the most important benchmarks in animal cognition research. You mark an animal with a dot they can't feel or smell, somewhere visible only in a mirror. Then you show them the mirror. Do they investigate the dot on their own body? Do they understand that the reflection is them? Most animals don't. Dogs fail it. Most birds fail it. Crows pass it. Crows are self-aware. Now, scientists debate the full philosophical implications of this. Self-awareness in animals is a spectrum, not a binary. But what's undeniable is that crows demonstrate a level of self-recognition that implies something significant. They understand themselves as distinct beings in a world of other beings. Which raises a deeply unsettling question. If a crow is self-aware, if it can recognize itself, if it can grieve, if it can form lasting emotional bonds, if it can remember specific faces and specific grudges, what does it experience when it watches a flock member die? What does it experience when it returns to a cache location and finds the food gone, stolen by a crow it recognizes? What does it experience when it hears the alarm call of its mate, and then silence? We don't know for certain. We can't. We don't have the language or the framework to fully understand the subjective inner experience of a crow. But the evidence strongly suggests that it experiences something, and that something includes loss and threat and social complexity and the unrelenting metabolic pressure of feeding one of the most costly brains in the animal kingdom. So why does it suck to be born as a crow? Because you are brilliant enough to understand your world, but not powerful enough to escape it. Because you love deeply in a life built for loss. Because you remember everything in an existence that gives you plenty to regret. Because you are social by nature, but society costs you every day. Because the same traits that make you remarkable are the traits that make your existence exhausting. And yet, here's the thing about crows that I keep coming back to. They're still here, thriving even. In cities and forests, in the Arctic, in the tropics, they have adapted to human civilization better than almost any other wild animal on Earth. They learned to use crosswalks to crack nuts. They learned to distinguish police uniforms from civilian clothing. They learned to exploit our garbage in our infrastructure and our habits. They are not victims of their intelligence. They are, against all odds, winning with it. Maybe it sucks to be a crow, or maybe being a crow is the universe's most demanding, exhausting, heartbreaking way to be extraordinary. I'll let you decide. If you want to see more videos like this one, deep dives into animal lives that are weirder and harder and more fascinating than you imagined, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me which animal you think has it the worst. See you in the next one.